would have been the most embarrassing podcast we've ever done, but no. Welcome to Planning Phase Syndicate. This is our Star Wars Unlimited podcast and episode 32. We're at 32, baby. Tonight, we're going to be talking about building a exploit and coordinate deck. We're going to kind of do an academy training and talk a little bit about, what it is, how to build one. Is it even worth building around? Should we just not even play some of these leaders? Or is it like a cool new mechanic, and kind of give you a little bit of guidelines, especially if you are just joining Star Wars Unlimited in set 3 and only have these type of cards. We're also going to be talking about the SCG Columbus. We had one of our co-hosts, Mr. Alex, the benchwarmer, go down there. He played on very little sleep, so he's going to join us tonight, and we're going to talk to him a little bit about his run and then kind of go through some of the top 8 decks. And plus, I got a hold of a few other decks from some of the other days, so we're going to kind of go through that and talk through a little bit of what the meta kind of looks like for our very first type tournament. Because I do know there is more 1Ks and 2Ks coming up, just never in Michigan for whatever reason. So, I don't know. With that being said, let me bring in my co-host for tonight. Please welcome to the show, Mr. Alex. How are you tonight, sir?
Oh, I'm doing well. Still kind of recovering from Saturday, but it was great fun. So I'm ready.
Yeah, you thought it would be a good idea to drive all the way down there the same day and back in one day and play a full tournament.
Yeah, I initially declined going with a couple of my buddies. I couldn't really, I didn't have the finances to do like a 3-day, 3 tournament Airbnb, all that fancy stuff. Unfortunately, because I really like that crew, and a couple of my more competitive locals are just like, I'll drive if you want to do it. So yeah, we woke up at 3 in the morning, ended up leaving Michigan around 4, drove the 3.5 hours down to Columbus, had some breakfast, then played at a full 7-round tournament that started at 9 a.m. and then we drove back. We were all dreadfully tired, but it was very much worth it. It was very fun to play.
Yeah, I can imagine. And I was on the fence of going back in September, but the problem I have is November is always a bad month for me, and December is always a bad month because my nephew's hockey stuff. And so I never know, back then I didn't know when I was going to travel for hockey. So I didn't want to commit to it. And then all of a sudden, hey, by the way, there's a hockey tournament. And then I didn't have any locals that I know of that went down there. There might've been a couple of guys from one of the other stores that did, but the people I play with, most of them had not gone down there. And so I don't know. I was kind of disappointed because I didn't go, but I did get to see Pig this weekend. So I don't know if you know who Pig is. But that was fun, and I got to meet him. So all right. So I guess I could detour a little bit from our normal podcast because JJ's not here tonight, so it'll be less content. But we had my buddy bought the meet and greet so that he can get all his stuff signed. And I bought the tickets to the show, and they're on my phone because my buddy's very technologically unadvanced. And it was at Smalls of all places. And at Smalls in Michigan, if you go there, they don't do they do digital tickets, or they give you a wristband or a ticket at the door. They do not you cannot get a physical ticket, it seems. So I had the tickets on my phone, and I was like, hey, can I just let him in? He's got a meet and greet, but he doesn't have a ticket. He doesn't even own a smartphone, so he doesn't know how to do this. And they were like, well, I guess you can go. You just got to come right back out. So then I was standing in line with them while we were getting the tickets. And the lady's like, I don't know, you probably shouldn't be here. And then some guy turns, he's like, hey, my wife didn't show up. So if I could keep all the meet and greet stuff, you can meet them if you want for free. I already paid for 2 passes. So they checked them. And then I got to meet Raymond Watts for free, which was pretty cool. And he gave, even though I didn't get all the swag, I got a cool little Raymond Watts signed poster. So that was kind of fun. I don't know. It's a fun night. I was going to actually look you up if you weren't going to that. I was going to see if you wanted to go to that show with me, because it was a cheap, $25 show.
I do like Smalls. It's pretty nice.
Yeah. That's one of my favorite. It's actually one of my favorite places. Oh, they have a halal coney dog, by the way, over there.
Yeah. I mean, it's
great. It's not as good. Huh?
Well, I mean, it's close enough to Dearborn.
Yes.
And Hamtramck, right? So it's very much of an Arabic population over there, so they tend to have halal meats.
I was so excited. I've never eaten at a halal coney dog. I was like, I didn't even know these things existed. So it was the best thing ever. We went and got it. they had this thing called a Naga Dog, which was like some sort of curry ketchup sauce or something that was on top of it with like cilantro and onions. It was the best. It was so good. I was so excited to eat there. And I was sad because you weren't around. And I was like, man, I bet Alex.
No, by the
So.
time you went there, I was probably asleep.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, it depends if you guys drove back. We were there at 7:00 at night. So, were you
That's
even
like
home
right
by
around when
7?
we came back, so
Okay.
immediately passed out.
Fair enough. Well, tonight it should be a fun show. We got a couple of things going on. I think. What do you want to cover first? Do you want to do our academy training, or do you want to cover tournament results?
Let's do the academy training first. Get that going.
Awesome. Be prepared. Our academy training tonight is going to be talking about building an exploit and coordinate decks. Welcome to our academy training. Tonight we're going to talk about understanding how to build a deck around exploit and coordinate. It should be pretty fun. The reason I like doing some of these is because it gives you you get to build with some of the new leaders, right? And we talked about this before, and it's like, I don't know, who do you want to build with? Is there anything new and cool? Well, I think the new exploit, the new coordinate functionality is really, really, really awesome. So Alex, why don't you tell everybody what exploit and coordinate is, just so that we could throw those definitions out there and get them out of the way.
Okay, so exploit is a keyword. It's one of the numbered keywords, and anytime you have a numbered keywords, they stack. So like restore 1, if you give devotion, now they have restore 2, they have a total of restore 3, so they restore 3. So exploit kind of works in the same way. Basically, while playing that card, you can defeat up to the number of units equal to the number next to exploit, and the card you're playing costs 2 less for each unit you defeat that way. And coordinate is kind of similar. Also another keyword, but this one doesn't have a number, so it's a static kind of effect. And basically, coordinate is you gain whatever ability they have after the coordinate if you control 3 or more units, including the one that has coordinate. You see that like on Ahsoka, you know.
That's a big one for us.
Yeah,
That's her favorite. She loves coordinate.
Yeah, so we're going to talk about what cards have the exploit and coordinate keywords.
Yep. So what I did is I put together a little graphic, and then I put together some numbers. I found this very interesting, and I want to go over the numbers real quick, and then we'll kind of get into we'll do the exploit first, and then we'll get into coordinate, right? So if you look up exploit, there is 22 total cards in the set that have exploit on it, which I thought was crazy. I swear it was more than that, but no, it's 22 cards total that have exploit. If you look at coordinate, there is 21 cards that have coordinate on. So they're almost evenly matched. The difference is there's an extra leader that has coordinate on it to actually round them out at 23, and then there's only one leader that has the exploit keyword on it that you can use, right? So I don't know, I thought that was very interesting. I didn't know there was it felt like there was more, because we get 252 cards and we only got 22 that have exploit and 22 that have coordinate. What? Who thought where's more exploit? But then now I actually have tasked myself, because I think I want to go back and look at all the other sets and the keywords from each of those sets and see if there's an even number, because if it is, that means that's what we can expect whenever we hear of a new thing. So if you go back and listen to our earlier podcast where we're revealing all these cards, and we talk about, we don't know how many of these are going to happen, so we don't know if it's going to be good or not. Folks, if set 2 has roughly the same number, that's exactly how many cards we could probably expect going forward in the new sets. So to begin with, these are the exploit cards, Alex. These are all of them. I did put a Sage in the black color just because it looks cool, but then I forgot. I think that was the only one that had that on there, because Maul doesn't. Mm-hmm. So I was like, it could be cool to have all those cards, but nope, that's the only one that I had that looks cool. So it's not really black; it's actually red. Just so everybody.
Well, red and black, right?
Because it's red and black. Yes,
but it's one of those Gen Con. Well, not necessarily Gen Con, just a con exclusive. Black cards is generally how we refer to them. They're gorgeous.
Yeah, what would be super awesome if you're going to PAX, if they revealed that there was going to be a hero side of that, I would probably go to PAX with you and just crash on your floor just to be able to get those. Like I think that would be worth it.
I believe PAX should have these convention exclusive ones, so I might try to pick up another one of those. That'd be kind of cool.
So these are the cards. I don't really have them in any specific order. I try to group color schemes by color schemes. I don't know, Alex. Do we want to go through each of the different cards? Do you want to highlight a couple of the cards, or and talk about the mechanics behind them? What do you want to get into?
Um, yeah, I think we should just go over some like standout cards, right? Because like all these cards are playable.
Hmm.
Some of them I feel are a little bit worse than other ones. But we can group them kind of by color, right? Uh, like the five blue cards that have exploit are like the Droideka Security, the Invasion of Christophsis, the Multi-Troop Transport, the Malevolence, and the Providence Destroyer. I'm not sure if Invasion of Christophsis will be played or not, but I feel like out of all those five, you're most likely to see the Malevolence. That's a really good ship. It's a 7/7 exploit 4 for 9 cost. So if you have 4 units, you can just destroy them all and play the Malevolence for 1 resource. And that's really scary in a 7/7 restore 2 ship that also gives a unit -4 attack and it can't attack that turn.
Yeah,
It's
that's the
really
best part. That the
yeah.
not being able to attack that, especially because if you can get that out on a leader flip turn. Oh
Mhm.
man, that's so that pisses. That's like people get angry so fast with that.
I did actually have a buddy. He was running like a blue green, I believe, Newt Gun Ray deck. And he just had a ton of droid tokens. I was just kind of ignoring them, and he just like sacked off 4 of them, played the Malevolence at like 4 resources, which is very scary. If I didn't have like a Fellow Dragon in my hand, would I just immediately slap down? Which he was very upset about. But it is what it is. Um, so I think that's again the majority of the one. You might see Droidica security here and there. I don't think it's a particularly strong Sentinel, especially in blue villainy. Multi-True Transport's okay, but I think like the big one, if you're going to look out for one or try to build something around, would be the Malevolence.
Yeah. And I will say the evasion of the Christophus, like if you are somehow building a token deck in either villain or hero, and I have seen this used like in hero in a control style hero deck. I've actually had that played against me more than one time, and like 3 out of the 4 times it actually worked to win them the game because it cleared my board enough that I didn't have anything. But like if I'm playing a control deck too, and I've only got like 1 or 2 units out, like oh no, you took my ball, I could just play another ball next turn. It works better against like if you have to board wipe something else, but it does give hero that option to do something. It's just such a taxing cost for that. But
Yeah, I mean the exploit 4 only only makes it cost 7.
yeah,
Right, so it's I mean one-sided board wipes, don't get me wrong, are silly, but at a certain point they just become too expensive.
yeah.
Up next is the red exploit cards. Um, so this one we have the Squadron of Vultures, the Planetary Invasion, Heavy Pursuer Tank, Count Dooku, and Asajj. I think, with the exception of Planetary Invasion, these are all pretty playable. I think Planetary Invasion is definitely the worst legendary. Up there with some of the worst cards in this set, at least that I can think of. I don't know why anyone would really do anything with that. But Dooku and Asajj, I think, would be pretty popular. The Heavy Pursuer tank, you're actually getting. There's some Triple Dark Raid decks that have that in there as kind of like a 1 or 2 off because it is a vehicle and it does do 2 damage to a ground unit. So if you have Django, it can actually exhaust them if need be. But um, I think Dooku, I know you're a huge fan of Dooku. You get the exploit 2, whichever units you exploit, you end up doing damage out to your opponent. And he's like not a bad body. And Asajj, um, you know, sometimes if you get like the 2 cost villainy card where you just create 2 clone tokens, you can just drop her down first turn.
Mhm.
I mean, she doesn't really have an ability if you do that, unless you're running like New Gun Ray and get one back. But like she's pretty solid. So I've seen Squadron of Vultures. They're okay at best. It's more of like they have exploit 3, so if you have a really token heavy deck, you could just drop them for free, and they're 5 in space, which ain't bad. But you know, this should be not shocking to anyone. The red cards are pretty aggressive and have like really strong attack powers with their dealing with the exploit. The blue ones tend to control and restore. So
And that
um,
heavy persuader tank is actually really good in sealed too. I found out. I did not actually play that the first game, the first like go around, but we just did a sealed one, and like I played that in my Anakin deck. I don't like, especially because you can exploit it out. Like it's, I don't know. I think it's a lot better than people give credit for. It's probably not worth a 3 of, in my opinion, but it's definitely worth a 1 or a 2 of, especially if you want that like splash, or maybe it's a sideboard card. Um,
oh yeah,
I
I
like
played
it.
it in the sealed Ahsoka deck actually, and I was just like just dropping some big units, and they're just like, oh, I can't really actually deal with this because it's just a really high power unit.
Hmm.
um, so up next, we have Gore. Well, okay, so we have green guards. First one is Gore. And then we have the Separatist Super Tank, Aussie. I do not understand. Like, I do not know how to pronounce his last Sobek, I guess. Aussie
Yeah,
Sobek.
I think that's how you.
Okay. The Bactoid Spider Droid and Admiral Trench. So, I don't think Aussie's also kind of counter intuitive for the exploit, right?
Hmm.
Because he captures a unit equal to what you actually paid for him, even though you can exploit him out for cheaper. But you have to like capture smaller units, so it's a little bit counter to how you want to do an exploit thing. But these cards aren't bad. I don't think they're particularly great. You can do some funky things with Admiral Trench and Sam Hill and Mahdi, all kind of have some sort of weird semi-infinite loop kind of thing going on. And Gore isn't the worst, but honestly, like the Separatist Super Tank might actually be like the more consistent of these. The Bactoid Spider Drone's not bad either, but like just dropping a like an 8/8. It has exploit 3, so you can drop it exploit 3 for 9, so you can drop it down to
6 or
3.
3.
Yeah, so you drop it down to 3 cost. So an 8/8 for 3 is really nice. But I think overall these tend to be the weakest of the exploit cards of the 4 main colors.
Yeah. I will say I like that Bactoid Spider Droid. I do think that there's a place for that in token decks. I don't know like how good it is in like all these other decks, but like in a token deck, because it has that ambush and it can come out on 4 resources if you want. Like that's pretty good. The math cost that we talk about a lot, like you could play your droid deployment, right? Get 2 droids for 2 costs, and then that's basically 4 resources off of that Bactoid Spider thing. So you can't play it like turn 2, but turn 3 if you still have those droids, or you wait and play that other one turn 2. Like you can have those droids be killed, unless you're playing against a Mauler and Anakin who's just overwhelming and going through your droids, and then you're sad.
Yep.
I found Admiral Trench to be better than I thought originally too. I actually have been playing him a little bit in Dooku. I didn't think I would like him, but being able to sack like a Poggle, for example, is pretty good. Like you can use something else to play for Poggle, exhaust him, get your droid, sack Poggle, get him back. Like it's got uses. Like it's not the best. But he is, for if you can exploit something, he is a 5/5, right? For 5. So
Yeah.
he's there.
He's not a Dooku or a Malevolence, right?
No,
So
no, he's not.
up next we have the yellow cards. You have the Tri-Droid Suppressor, the Geonosis Patrol Fighter, Sam Hill, the Infiltrating Demolisher, and the Tactical Droid Commander. This might be collectively the best color, I think, with Exploit. I don't think they match
It's
like the peaks of the Malevolence and Dooku, but I think across the board they're more solid.
better mid-rangey
Yeah.
fodder.
I mean, the Geonosis patrol craft is kind of like an auto include in like your Palpatine Sidious stacks because it is a way of exploiting your own hero troops so you can actually flip Palp if they decide to lane dodge or just outright refuse to kill your guys.
Mm-hmm.
Same with the droid tri-suppressor, but a little bit less of an extent because that is like a 7 cost. But yeah, I think actually, honestly, the Infiltrating Demolisher is a underrated card because you can just exploit one unit and drop it for 2, and it's like a 4/4 with Saboteur, right? Like,
Mm-hmm.
it's a solid card.
Yeah, thank God we don't have a Boba Fett anymore, because that was like in my Boba Fett deck, by the way, before they banned them. So
Yeah, it's just they're just utility, right? Like the droid tri-suppressor. It's your common yellow trope. So it exhausts the patrol fighter, it bounces. The like Sam Hill readies the resources. Like it's all again, the tactical droid also exhausts, and the infiltrating demolisher is not really following that, but it has saboteur, and I guess that's kind of tricky for yellow or whatever. But they're very solid cards. And the last 2 non-leader cards are just 2 pure villainy cards. They're the Hellfire Tank and the Battle Droid Legions. They're honestly like solid filler cards. They're not bad in draft. Actually, I don't know. I think they're pretty solid in draft and sealed. I'm not sure if they're going to see main deck, constructed deck play. But the Battle Droid Legion, it's a 6/5 exploit 2, so you can get it down to a 5 cost, and then when defeated, you get 3 Battle Droid tokens. So if you exploit it for 2, you kind of get an extra 1. It just takes a little bit. And the Hellfire Tank, honestly, is just kind of an annoying bomb.
Yeah.
You could drop it down to 4, and it's got 7 attack, and it's a little bit of a pain, and it's an incredible Dooku Sentinel target. Yeah. Yeah, go on.
As I say, I think like I don't know if I like the Battle Droid Legion in constructed, but I do like the Hellfire Tank Droid a little bit more in constructed. Again, we're talking exploit decks, right? Like it works pretty well in an exploit deck. But the problem I have, and this is now we could kind of talk a little bit about the mechanic, right? Because the mechanic, as you're building around this deck, do you always include a bunch of stuff you can exploit? Do you only include exploit cards? We know you can't because you wouldn't get a 50 card deck. But like, how many of these are worth putting all the way in versus playing around it? And I think when we talk about the Hellfire Tank and we talk about some of these other ones, because when you play in constructed, there's all this other stuff. You have to be very careful because, again, for example, open fire. You have force choke. We have force throw. We have waylays. They just ruin your day a little bit if I play 4 droids and then play a Hellfire Tank and then you get rid of it very easily without taking damage. Like that's a little upsetting, right? So you have to be careful.
Yeah, that's the inherent gamble with exploit, right? You are sacking your own units, so you lose a little bit of tempo, but you're dropping something huge, and if your opponent can respond, you just get set back. Because you wasted your own material that you could have kept. Granted, your material is generally like 1/1 or 2/2 tokens, so it's not the biggest of losses, but it's still setting you back. And sometimes SWU is a game of inches, and that will just devastate you.
Yes, especially like losing that Hellfire Tank droid to like a Power of the Dark Side. Like that's not fun. So let's talk a little bit about like constructing a deck, right? So we already talked about what we think the best color is, right? Is it's yellow is the best exploit color if you want to use exploit cards. The question is as you're building a deck for exploit, because there is neutral stuff in here, and actually if you look at it, there's a lot more neutral outside of yellow. than some of the other ones. So yellow and red have a lot more. This is only for villain, right? But the question then becomes is like, do you, Alex, do you want to build like around Dooku, or can you use some of this exploit with some of these other leaders that we see that I didn't throw on the slide because they're not exploit ones
Right,
specifically, but they have synergy. So let's talk a little bit about that. Like as we're building this deck and as we're talking through how do we want to build this deck, are you looking at Dooku, or do you feel one of the other leaders is probably a better choice?
Yeah, so Dooku is the one leader technically with like the exploit keyword, right? You know, his is as an action, you can exhaust him and then play a separatist card from your hand. It gets exploit one. So you actually turn the non-exploit separatist into an exploitable separatist, which is really, really strong, depending on like what you're trying to go around. Or you can bump up like a separatist super tank from a exploit 3 to an exploit 4 and drop it for one. But you know that is limited to separatist cards, and that pool is not it's not bad by any means, but it's not like, for lack of better word, and because I love puns, exploitable.
Yeah.
So
So I pulled them. I pulled the numbers. So if you look here, we do have numbers for how many separatist cards there were in this set, which is crazy. There's more separatists than exploit cards, right?
right,
Like, um, so there's 15 green, 14 blue. There's only 11 red, which I just couldn't believe that. Like I had to go back through and relook twice at that. 12 yellow, 8 villain, and 1 neutral, and you'll never play the neutral, so we're not even going to discuss the
my
neutral
aggrieved
card.
parliamentarian.
Nope, don't need. I don't want to talk about it because it's like that card just makes zero sense to me. Outside of it was really cool to play it in sealed because you could and not feel bad about it. That's the only time I played one, and then I was like, put your discard pile back in there, baby. Like didn't
I
do
also
anything.
told my opponent to put their discard pile back in their hand, but it was the first turn and I had initiative, so nothing happened.
um. So anyway, so back to the sorry, the I know I distracted you a little bit, but back to the like leader discussion. Like you said, separatist cards. There is some separatist card. There is some synergy in there, but there's also other 2 or 3 other leaders that work with exploit. Correct?
Right. So, as you were not subtly alluding to, there are a couple other leaders. Um, Mainly, I would say, I mean, basically, it's just New Gunray and Wat Tambor. New Gunray, as an action, you can exhaust them. If 2 or more friendly units were defeated this phase, you can create a battle droid token. So if you do something like exploit 2 and then drop a card, you immediately have New Gunray's ability. Just to get more exploit fodder, honestly. Just get more droids. And Wat Tambor, he, as an action, if a friendly unit was defeated this phase, you give another unit +2/+2 for this phase, which indirectly, when you're exploiting things, you are defeating your own units, right? Um, and remember, it says defeated and not like return the hand
Mm-hmm.
or fizzle because like you bounced a token. Like those don't count. So it is when with defeated things. Yeah, so he just gives +2/+2. So if you can exploit a unit or 2 out and then buff something pretty strong.
Yeah, which I think like I don't know, like I like the idea behind some of that, right? Like it's just really cool to have a little bit, and it does give us like a little bit more desire to build some sort of an exploit deck. Because I think the next question is like how do you balance it out, right? Like so let's and maybe we could build like a quick deck. Maybe that's just the easiest way to talk about balancing it out. I don't know. Um, but I do what I do know is like the big thing with it is if you want to play it, you can't like I can't just play 3 of the crest offices unless I'm actually going to use that card and think it's good. Like don't include them to just include them. It doesn't make any sense, you know. These work a little bit different than the coordinate, which we'll talk about here in a few minutes. And I don't know. I get concerned when we see some of these. Like I wouldn't include Battle Droid Legion currently right now at all in construct. I just wouldn't do it. Like I just don't think the payoff even if you can get that out for 5, I don't think the payoff is there as much. Other than if they kill it immediately, at least you get something out of it back.
Yeah,
But then you're the problem is you got to think you're playing these cards to kill these cards to play more cards. Eventually, you're gonna run out of cards, man. Like it happens unless you're only playing creating battle droids, which is what Newt does. Easier, he makes it so you don't have to kill as many things.
right. Well, it's more of like you just get a rebate back when you do it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, overall, it's a pretty neat mechanic, right?
Mm-hmm.
I enjoy the addition to it.
Yeah, I think we originally thought it all depends on the cards, and now that we see all the cards, I think it feels a little bit better than we originally thought. But I will tell you that like I'll say Cybeck like is great in drafts and sealed and stuff, but it's like unless you're going to run a capture deck, it also has a hard time working, and that's what I found with a lot of these exploit cards like Gore. It's super fun to play in Grievous, I won't lie, but I'll tell you what, again, it's the same thing. Like when he ambushes in and hits a Maul or hits like a Dooku or something and then has like 2 health left, if that, you just get real sad. You feel really bad about it, and then they kill it somehow with like Tarkin Town or I don't know, like Daring Raid, and now you just murdered 5 units. So
yeah, yeah, like it's a nice like balance payoff kind of thing between like, hey, if I can get this off, this is just gonna just wreck face. If it's not, then oof, my bad.
Yeah. The one thing I will notice, and I don't know, I can't remember if I mentioned this in my Palp Red video that we did this week. But when you play, like, for example, in Palp Red and you can like kill things, like Dooku works really well with other red cards such as Ruthless Raider because you play that, it does 2 damage, you can swing with it the next turn, and then you can kill it to exploit it, and then Dooku does that damage based on that stupid card. So it can be very dirty, and you don't have to use Dooku to exploit. So like I personally, out of all of these cards, like Dooku is my favorite. I think that Geonosian Prototype and that Infiltrating Demolisher are the 2 best ones out of all of the cards. But man, Dooku's so much fun to play. Just so much fun. I love that card. I need to get some hyperspace foil. So if people want to sell me hyperspace foils, I'll trade you for. I have some Gore. I have 2 Gore hyperspace foils. I will trade you for some Dooku hyperspace foils. All right, shall we move on to Coordinate?
Yeah, let's go on to that.
All right, so Coordinate is a little bit different. Obviously, like we talked about at the beginning, you got to have 3 units. So essentially, you have to have 2 other units. Originally, we thought this was going to be super hard. It's not as hard as I thought it was going to be to create freaking clone trooper tokens comparatively. Like I thought it was going to be super hard to like where there was no way this was going to work. I don't feel that way as much anymore. How about you, Alex? Is that something?
I mean, so it's. I wouldn't say it's like easy to get out 3 units. I mean, you just need 2 other units, right? But if your opponent is playing maybe a slower deck, or if they're playing like an aggro deck where they're not concentrating too much on your board, then getting Coordinate off is significantly easier. Although I feel like once they realize you have a Coordinate-based deck, they're just going to kill your units pretty quick and make sure you only have 2 or so. But it does come off more than I expected, but I'm not sure. But it goes a lot further earlier in the game. I would say, like, if you play some higher health units, they tend to stick around. Or if you got like a big sentinel or an annoying one like village protectors, that helps maintain your board. Or if you're going like you got a couple space units and they mostly have ground units, it's pretty easy to get the Coordinate off because they're not in your lane.
Mm-hmm.
But certain Coordinates are a little bit easier to get off than other ones.
Yeah,
especially when it comes to leaders.
Exactly. Yes, and some leaders are worth it more than the other leader. leaders are for the coordinate.
And that set leader that is not worth it is the one that I have the showcase of for this set.
Oh, you got a showcase? When did you get that?
Pre-release.
Oh, I don't remember you talking about that.
Yeah, remember when I'm just like, hey, open up my pre-release box and I get all 3 versions of Padme leader?
Oh, no, I guess I did not.
Yeah, I got a normal version, a hyperspace version, and the showcase version.
Oh,
Yay. I'm not gonna build a Padme deck.
you
Maybe
should.
maybe later. We'll figure it out. Like, that's way down the line.
I've
Let's
been
get
playing. All right, hold on. I've been playing a little bit of Padme, and I am not as discouraged by it as I thought I would. So, but let's talk about coordinate and not specifically Padme.
yeah. Okay, we'll get to Padme later, actually. So I'm just gonna go through, just like explained. We're just gonna go through. We'll start with blue. For the coordinate cards, you have the 41st Elite Corps, the For the Republic upgrade card, Kiadi Mundi, Infantry of the 212th, and Luminara, Unduli. Um, much like you would expect with blue, they're kind of more focused on. Um, okay, so like the infantry, if you have coordinate, you get Sentinel, right? If you have For the Republic, you get Restore. Kitty Moody draws you cards. I guess they're kind of all over the place, but they all maintain like the blues traits of, well, they have high health and they will eventually do other things. I think out of all of these 5, Kiadi Mundi is probably going to be the most impactful, probably the most played. I don't think Lumi is particularly bad. Just her worst fault is that she is a 7 cost blue hero unit that is not named Luke Skywalker. So that's a little bit rough. So, I mean, grit. I mean, once she heals you when she comes out, right, and then she's got
Oh.
a 9 health with grit, but the grit's the coordinate conditional, so it's kind of wonky. But I've had played Katabundi a couple times in my decks, and he he does work.
Yeah. And I think, like I think the thing, like when we talk about some of those in like their dollar spots, right? I guess their what their resource cost is, like Keanu Moody, like for 5 resources is great. And in blue, like you could play him on both sides of the fence, which is a little weird. Like to be perfectly honest with you, he definitely should not be able to be played in villain. And he turns on things in villain that are a little bit different than we thought. Like he turns force around pretty easy. Force choke. I mean, like there you go. He turns on what was the force lightning for whatever reason. Like he does things that like I've been playing him in Mall Blue a little bit, and he actually does like a lot better than I really thought he was going to, and he becomes like a sentinel to some extent, like Obi-Wan is, because people don't want you to get that card, which I don't know why. Like I don't know why anybody cares that much, but like
I mean, 5/7 body with a force trait alone is kind of threatening.
yeah.
5/7 for 5 alone is kind of threatening, but also like if you try to start dealing with it, all of a sudden they're drawing more cards, and blue tends to control a little bit more, right? So if you're running villain blue control, you could draw into your super laser blast quicker if you needed that, or your power of the dark sides, or perilous position, or whatever control card you're trying to use. So and then also for hero, it enables a lot of force strategies, and there's a lot of
Mhm.
those between like I guess it binds all things, and the force is with me, and all that kind of stuff. And Jedi's lightsabers are terrifying. So
They are. And then we talk a little bit like Lumi, like you said, like especially if you're going wide, like would you rather play a Luke than her? Well, what do you need to do? Do you need to kill things or do you need to heal? Like I think that's the kind of the question. Like the problem again, she also runs up against like a redemption, which is one more unit, but she does have 9 health, right? And so like she can heal on the initial when played, and then you can play lightsabers on her. Somebody had her in draft or sealed, and then had a general's blade, and that was super effing fun to deal with. Like that was annoying as hell.
I did have Luminara in my blue Rex deck for sealed, and she can do some work. Just if you have the coordinate, the grit is really scary with her.
Yes. and I think being able to damage her with some of the other abilities that kind of somewhat exist in blue sometimes, and some of these other colors, like you can damage her a little bit if you want to. It's a little bit more than I thought she's. So she does have she just has a different knack than Luke does, right? Luke is just the easy, lets everybody play Luke, but there's a Chewbacca slot, and the only advantage Chewbacca gets, right, is he's a 9 cost like resource guy, and people are probably not going to play resource hate like we did last set. So like nobody's playing scanning officer. Well, nobody played. I played scanning officer, but people should have.
Officer.
Yeah, people should have been playing scanning officer. So like, but now Chewbacca is probably safer than like a Lumi bet is because you can pull him out. But Lumi does the heal, but like I don't know. So there's some neat things you can do with her. I would not sleep on her as much as like people have been. I think even in a 50 card deck, there's room for 1 or 2 of her. So
I actually won a game because I healed like 4 or 5 off Lumi.
Yeah.
When I dropped her and then like swung in because I was just down on action tempo.
Yep.
Up next we have green. This one you have Echo, the Pelta Supply Frigate, Ayla Secura, Clone Commander Cody, and the Coruscant Guard. I think this is probably the second best color for Coordinate, honestly. We'll get to the other one that I think is the best. But this is they're generally pretty solid. I mean, Ayla is very scary if you have something like ACL. You just if you have that coordinate, just fly her out there, swing for 6. 6'5" body on a 5. Just swing for 6 and not take any damage back, and that's just a massive tempo play.
She's really
again ACL. Very specific, like as timely intervention as well. That's also green if you don't have ECL base. If you chose green leader, but yeah, she can get really scary, and she just becomes like a heat magnet. So they have to like go into her, but she attacks for 6, so that's probably killing most of them.
Yeah.
I don't think the Pelta Supply Frigate really has a place. It's okay at best. It's just kind of expensive for what it does. I think Clone Commander Cody's body is just not good in constructed. Like he was fine and sealed. He was also in my Rex deck, and that was kind of terrifying. But I think in constructed, just being a 4/4 for 5 just isn't going to cut it. Even with like the buff to all your other guys and overwhelm.
Yeah. I don't know. I think it depends on what you're playing against. Against aggro decks, Clone Commander Cody works. Against control and mid range decks, he does not.
Yeah.
I think that's the problem.
And the Coruscant Guard is actually like an okay play. It's just a 2/3 Sentinel, but or sorry, 2/3 ambush. But yeah, it's okay at best. It's not like a great at worst. At worst, it's a turn 1 play. I wouldn't build a deck around it, but Echo is pretty solid, especially because you have another version of Echo from last set that you can do more shenanigans with set 2 Echo's abilities.
Yep.
So it's okay. There's that one's. I mean, Coordinate is generally is more geared for heroes, but this one is like very like, hey, let's get these waves of people out and then preserve ourselves, right? So up next is red, which I believe is actually the best one for Coordinate, in my opinion. So you have the Reckless Torrent, you have Heavy, the Clone Heavy Gunner, Kit Fisto, and Anakin Skywalker. And, Heavy Anakin and Kit Fisto are all really solid cards.
Heavy is amazing.
Oh,
I love Heavy.
So I have I was just iterating off the red Fennec deck that I have, and I threw Heavy in there. And last week when I was testing in locals, I used Fennec's ability to bring out Heavy, and in back-to-back games, I just one-shot their Maul Leader. Because he gets the raid 2 when attacking, so he just comes out, he swings for 6, and then he dies, and everyone just takes 1 damage on their side.
Yep.
He's just very solid. Anakin being a 6/6 for 5 is very scary, and when he attacks, you draw cards, right? Like with coordinate, Kid Fisto. I think he's actually kind of underrated. I think he can slot into a lot of red green villainy mid range decks, especially if they're like kind of going force based. He's also a terrifying ECL target.
Yep. He's really, especially if you get that coordinate off with the Saboteur, with that, like you could ambush it out, hit something with a shield and not care. Like you don't care about that shield.
Yeah, so the 7/6 Saboteur already very good, but the coordinate gives him on attack. You just deal 3 damage to a ground unit, which is very strong. The coordinate abilities get significantly stronger if they're like added gravy onto it, right? Not like the clone heavy gunner in this case, like it's 1/3 with coordinate, it gets 2 extra attack, right? Like technically, sure, it's okay, but he's kind of useless without the coordinate. Kid Fisto, Anakin, even heavy to a certain extent, they're not useless. If you don't have the coordinate, I think that's why it's really strong. Anakin's still a 6/6 body on 5. Kid Fisto's still Saboteur 7/6 for 6.
Yep.
Heavy gets the
The
1
4/4.
damage ping.
Yeah.
Yep. So it's I think they're pretty strong. It is worth noting that Anakin is the only hero red coordinate as well.
I know, isn't that crazy?
Yeah.
That's like
And
the
it's starter
weirdest thing I've
pack
ever
too.
seen.
And he's the starter pack, so he's not even like something you could open up in packs, which is really cool. I don't know. I guess a lot of people betrayed everyone in red. I guess.
Yeah,
And
I
you
don't know
get
what Kit Fisto did to betray anyone because I don't remember
Smile
him
too
betray.
much.
Yeah, like he didn't betray anyone, man.
He was too happy. His toxic positivity.
I guess.
So yeah, I mean those are solid cards. If you have ECL, they get really silly. Um, Up next we have yellow, and only 4 cards in this, even though there's like kind of one. Nah, I wouldn't really consider it. Anyway, so it's you get Padme Amidala, the Sanctioner Shuttle, the Clone Dive Trooper, and Plo Koon.
Plo
Um,
Koon's insane. There you
Plo
go.
Koon is fantastic.
Plo Koon's the best. I think out of all of these cards, I think like you're right. Red is the best suit set for it, but Plo Koon is the best
I think
best
Plo
card
Koon
hands
is
down.
the best individual card.
Yeah,
Yeah,
just like Merry Christmas.
yeah. It's a 3/6 ambush with coordinate. You get raid 3, so much like heavy or something, you are just swinging in for 6. And with yellow, you tend to control a little bit better. So you get that ambush off a lot.
Mm-hmm. Disgusting.
Yeah, and the 6 health goes a long way for 5. So he's strong. The clone drive to trooper, the sanctioner shuttle, and Padme Amidala are almost completely functionally useless. So that's a little depressing. I
The
don't know what.
Sanctioners, okay, the Sanctioner Subtle in draft or sealed was okay. Like it was good, and I liked it in that because I could capture something.
Sure.
But that's about it. Like other than that, I would never play it outside unless I wanted an all capture deck, which just seemed like I'll never get that. But
Right, but it only captures something that's 3 or less.
yep.
So it's like, oh, you take a tiny unit they had when you have coordinate and you have to have it when played. But yeah, like all the other ones honestly are just not good. I mean, Padme, I guess, she gives -3 to something when she attacks. -3, -0, so that doesn't really. I guess it's okay at best. No, anyways, he's just Plo Koon. He just does the best.
Mm.
Up next, we have the last 2 cards here, the heroic cards. You got the 332nd Stalwart and the Republic Commando. The 332nd getting the additional the +1/+1 if you have coordinate, and the Republic Commando getting a whopping Saboteur for his 2/5/3 body. The 332nds aren't awful. just because they are one drop, so it helps with the coordinate. I don't think the Republic Commando is worth playing.
Yeah, it is. The 2/5 is 3 costs. Like it's there's a lot of other 3 cost cards. If you're playing like a complete clone deck, fine, I guess, or it's some sort of a trooper deck. Okay, like you can consider it, but I think there's so many clones, troopers now. We don't have. I don't think play it.
Yeah, I mean, man, Kiadi, Mundi, Ayla, Sakura, Kit Fisto, Anakin, and Plo are great and heavy. But otherwise, I think it's a little bit underwhelming compared to Exploit. I think the peaks are a little bit higher in Coordinate, but I think the Exploit cards overall have a higher floor.
Well,
And
let's talk a
then,
little bit about if we're going to build a coordinate deck, right? We have the 2 leaders. Um, one of them is buildable. The other one, we haven't cracked the code.
ooh,
Um,
that's generous.
so we're gonna just say that. Like, I mean, I don't know. They played it they did play it on stream, and they had a pretty decent like Padme coordinate deck that did pretty well. FFG did, but I have not been able to replicate it against. And I guess now without Boba, it might be a little bit better, but I still haven't been able to get it to do a lot. I have lost to it, but not consistently where it's been like they've crushed me every time. Um,
Yeah, I'm sure at some point I've lost to a Jin or so as well.
so I think, so the question is if you're building around a coordinate deck, you don't specifically need the leaders, and Ahsoka benefits because you get the +2. And then she benefits when she comes out because she's what
With
is she?
so she, so Ahsoka is like when you have coordinate, you can use her action to exhaust her, attack with a unit, it gets +1. When she flips, she's a 3/6 for 5, but if you have coordinate, she gets +2 attack. So she's a
That's right.
5/6, which is scary for a 5-drop leader.
Yes.
Yeah. We banned a leader with close to those stats.
Mhm.
So,
And no one's really using her right now,
yeah.
and I think that's silly because I think there's some stuff you can do with coordinate with her specifically.
Yeah.
And I
It's kind of
go
go
ahead.
on.
Well, what I was
Uh,
going to say is what I was just trying to get at is like we talked a little bit on the exploit side. Is it worth playing around Dooku or these other leaders, or can you use some of the exploit just intermingled in your deck? So the same question is with coordinate. Does some of these, and we already touched on Plo Koon, right? Like Plo Koon obviously could play in any deck because the coordinate doesn't require the same feeling as you need with the exploit type stuff. Like you aren't typically exploiting something that's costing a lot of money because it sucks. Like it's a feels bad situation. But coordinate cause just needs 3 people. So I don't know, Alex, is that how you're playing? Like, do you recommend building around, we'll just call it building around Ahsoka, or like is it better to just sprinkle some of these into our decks that we're currently playing?
yeah, I think it's interesting actually if you're playing an Ahsoka deck. I mean, you do have the strongest coordinate units, but you're not necessarily always going for units that have coordinate, right? Because that's a very one-track thing, and then if that falls apart, your whole deck falls apart. So it's nice that you get, access to cheaper units. You still have other ones that live. You can have high-cost units, so they stick around for the board. Um, so like if you're playing Ahsoka, who I also agree with you, I think she's kind of underrated. I think she's pretty strong. You can do some things there. The coordinate is really nice, and you can do it without playing a bunch of coordinate units. But if that's what you're going for, you know, you could do like a green red, get the best of both worlds. There, you get Anakin and Ayla or Heavy or whatever, or you could do yellow and get Plo Koon as well. And it's nice to have the coordinate cards, but again, it's the ones that are like the coordinate is a nice bonus. I also just have things like that's what makes Plo Koon so good, right? Like 3/6 ambush is okay for 5. It's not great, but that coordinate just puts them way over the top. But you're not always going to have that, And that's like the cool balancing factor they could do. Because if Plo Koon just existed as a 6/6 ambush for 5, it's just bonkers.
Yeah, he would be an auto include in every yellow hero deck ever made.
You
They
might
wouldn't
even
even be a
side.
question.
Yeah, yeah. uh, yeah. So I like the coordinate mechanic itself like that. If I was building a deck like that, just a smattering of coordinate, because again, you don't want to get railroaded because you'll get derailed.
Yeah. And I think that's the neat thing about the coordinate piece is exploit is the same way. It doesn't need to have you can exploit whatever unit you want. Like for example, super laser tech is a great thing to exploit if you're not using Pelp, right? Because you can swing at the base and then exploit the stupid thing and still get the same the same value out of it. But in coordinate, because it works very well with other units, you can have other sentinels on the board, you can have troopers, you can have all these other things, and it doesn't even have to be Republic. Though I did look at the Republic stats, and they're actually more than the Separatist stats are. There's also one special card called General Pong or something like that, Krell Pong, that is double green. That's never seen play almost ever. Because he's a 5/4 with ambush, right? And no, he's a 5/4 though. He's a 5/4.
He's a 5/4. He gives all your units
when defeated, draw a card.
When defeated, draw a card. Yeah.
Yeah. But anyway, so there's actually quite a few Republic cards for the synergy, more so I feel than the Separates was.
Yeah, and then yeah, they're pretty mediocre cards, unless you get the coordinate, which is the balancing factor. Like exploit is really strong, but if they just set you back, you're just devastated. Same with coordinate. If you have a bunch of coordinate cards and you only have 1 or 2 units at the time, they're functionally useless.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a cool design space. I'm glad we have these in the deck, in the game. They're pretty cool.
Yeah, and they're very thematic. So that's part of the big. I know you're not as big into the lore as other people are, but they are very, very thematic over some of these other sets and stuff like that. That was a joke. Anakin can kill how many effing battle droids, right? That's the joke.
Yeah.
Give him a fallen lightsaber and he can kill all of them at once. All right. Anything else you want to cover about these two before we wrap it up?
No. I mean, they're a welcome addition to the game. They're really cool. I like them. And some of these cards are really good. Plo Koon, Dooku, even like the smaller Legionosh's Patrol Fighter, Ki-Adi-Mundi, Ayla. They're all awesome. So
fair enough. Well, that will conclude our Academy training segment for this week. And yeah, so if you like this type of content, let us know. I like doing some of these things, and I really liked this this set. I'm a little partial to the set just because of the clone. So that's my sons grew up watching this, and I grew up with them watching it. So I have a nostalgia to this that I don't have with everything else all the time. So if you like this type of stuff, let us know though. Join our Discord or tell us on the video here anything you want, other things you want to see us cover that might be fun. We'll happily cover them. All right, let's move on to our Chaos of War segment, which is going to be some interesting stuff tonight, right, Alex? We've got the first large tournament. You participated in it. It was kind of crazy. We got some Palpatine deck to talk about, baby. I'm so excited. It's a Palpatine yellow, so it's not my favorite, but it is dirty, and Palpatine yellow just might be the dirty Palpatine that finally takes something down. Let's see. But why don't we get into our Chaos of War? All right, welcome to our Chaos of War segment. This is where we're going to cover SSG Columbus 1K from November 14th through the 16th. There was 3 tournaments, 2 1Ks and a 2K. Alex went to the 2K, took the whole thing down, was champion. Oh,
Yeah, I wish.
that wasn't you. Sorry. Um,
Oh, that was someone else from Michigan.
there was someone
Almost.
else. Well, is Tada from Michigan? I didn't know.
I don't think so.
Um, anyway, so there was some interesting decks. So they had 3 different tournaments. Because they are not planetary qualifiers, there was not the same attendance, but there's definitely a big enough attendance that I wanted to cover them tonight, because I really think, like, when we talk about first beta, first blood for the beta, like, this is a good conversation to have, right? Like, we all talk about, all these other things that could be going on, but this is a great conversation to say, what is the meta going to shape up and kind of look like first glance? I think we've talked about this before, right? We know aggro always comes out strong. Aggro is always one of the first things that comes out when new sets come out, and people then have to adjust on how to beat the different ones. It takes a little bit more time. But this set felt a little differently. I don't feel that we're getting like all aggro. Like, I feel with Boba being removed, we're seeing some control come back. We're seeing a lot bigger range of mid-range decks than we've ever seen. And we've got a Tarkin Blue, baby. A Tarkin Blue deck, which is absolutely hilarious, because there's a local of mine that came a couple weeks ago and he played a Tarkin Blue deck and like wrecked everybody but one person. Like, he only lost to one person. He lost to a Dooku deck, and that was it. Other than that, he like wrecked the whole thing, and like I was like, Tarkin Blue, like, oh really? Like, we saw a little bit of this.
Tell me that deck.
Yeah,
I think that's interesting.
I thought so too, and like I just was like, oh, this is really cool, and it's like control-ish until it doesn't want to be control-ish. So they did not play out the top cut. They just split the pricing for top 8. But we had 2 Django Tarkins, a Kira green, an Anakin blue, a Quinlan green, a Han 2 ACL, which I thought was interesting, and then we had our Pelp yellow, baby, hitting top 8 there. So excited for that. I love it. Day 2, and this is the one Alex was in. This one had 70 players. A little bit different of a top cut, but pretty similar. We saw 3 Django Tarkin towns. And I want to like express that I'm pretty sure that most of these are space ones. So we'll talk about that when we get to the decks here.
They are.
So that's a conversation we are going to have tonight, because I think that's an important conversation to have. But there is also a Han 1 yellow, which I think we predicted that was going to be one of the things to replace it. Anakin blue stepping up. That's neat to see an Anakin blue. Of course, there's a Sabine ECL. Can't get away from Sabine ECLs. An Array red Tarkin town, and then another in the Kira green. I don't know if it's the same guy as the day 1. I'm not sure, but I'm guessing it might be, but I don't know for sure. So I did get to watch the Kira deck play on screen that Saturday. That was fun. Then our last one was that Sunday, and on the Sunday, they had, again, a very similar cut, except for there was a Bosk blue and a Luke green. So I don't know what happened. Did the Tarkin Town people go home, or did people tech against it? That's the real question, and maybe you can answer that in a minute if you know, like, if Ryan stayed and played that day or not. But
I was going to say, I believe he did, but I don't think he might have.
Do you know if he played the same deck? I'm assuming he played Django. Like, that would be my assumption.
I believe so, but I don't. Right.
We'll look it up
afterwards.
We'll look it up in just a minute. That's what we'll do. I'll pull it up on my phone here in just a second. But there was 2 Anakin blues, a Pelp yellow again, a Yoda yellow, which I'm so excited to see Yoda finally crack, a Sabine ECL, Quinlan green, Luke green, which is super exciting to see Luke come back, and a Bosk blue. Crazy, right? Like, this day, either everybody just wanted to play for fun decks, or this day people started teching against some of these other, like, Django decks, which, again, I think that's what we got to talk about, right? Because if you could tech against Django, is he really that powerful, or was this just one of those decks that just happened to catch people by surprise, which I don't know how it could, but they caught him by surprise, and, like, that's people then by day 3 were able to tech against it and squash it. So let's go back to your run. You didn't run any of these decks. And we're not going to go over your list. We'll keep it secret, and as you tweak it. Actually, we
already went over.
Yeah, we did. I'm just messing with people. But let's talk a little bit about your run and kind of like your feel for the day and what you saw. How about we do that? Because I think that's important to kind of get an understanding of how the day went.
Yeah, so remember we drove up at just at 4 a.m. to go out there. It was me and a couple locals, Jack and Jake. Jake was running his own version of Django Tarkentown that he actually like kind of developed independently of like the popular KTOT one. So his is actually close, but like in a different shell. He's got a little. It's a little bit more into mid range than it is straight aggro. And my buddy Jack, he brought a Iden Blue because for some reason all my locals are playing Iden Blue. I don't get it. Everyone jumped on that bandwagon by me again out of
Yeah.
nowhere, and no one knows why. We were discussing amongst ourselves if there was some sort of weird catalyst for it, and it just seemed all like everyone diverged on it randomly. I brought my Boba Blue. I don't feel like I should have to specify hero anymore now that the other Boba's
Mm,
banned, but
Old
it
man
is
Bo.
hero Boba. So it says green blue hero, which is a very strong color combination right now. It is very much just drop sentinels, eke out some advantage here and there, and then in the end game, I have like triple Luke, triple U Wing, double home one, double redemption, double Zillow Beast. So hopefully that end game can win. Sometimes it doesn't. But yeah, it's a really cool deck. It's very frustrating. It absolutely stonewalls and demolishes Django Tarkentown. Those games are never close. And it's also happened to be pretty good against most aggro because again, it's a lot of Sentinel and the math gets really bad for your opponent when you have Boba's ability. Give something +1 attack when you play a keyword. Your modded cohorts can swing in and ambush for 5, so you can just like one shot Sabines. Your village protectors hit back for 3. Your Concord Dongs hit back for 4. You got your Larens in there, so your Concord Down interceptors can eat from a Daring Raider or the Ruthless Raider and still live, which is very frustrating for the Tarkin down Django decks.
Yep.
Oh yeah, it's real silly. A lot of the stuff it does. I did go 3-4, which is less than I wanted to do. But it is what it is. My first opponent actually was a yellow blue Han, which was
Spicy.
very interesting. Yeah, it kind of plays like you would like a yellow Yoda, where it's just like, yeah, you have all these force units, you can kind of drop things off a little bit early because of Han. You still have now there are 2 of them. The force energies in there. It's kind of crazy. It was cool. Our game went to time, which like never happens with me. On the third game, and he managed to take it out with just um. Actually, it was Grogu. Grogu ruined my life. I didn't really have ground units, so he just kept exhausting my home one with
Oh,
Grogu,
so
and
dirty.
then between exhausting my home one and also waylaying it a couple times, he actually managed to whittle me down. Like I can't do much when I'm just attacking with a Concord Dawn Interceptor and an Arc every turn, and he's got a full board. So that was a very cool series. My next opponent was playing a yellow Sabine, which I feel like I should win 90% of the times, and this was the 10% I didn't. Um, Sometimes you just don't draw cards. My first game by resource. So turn 3, I have 4 resources. Do you know what? You know what I drew? I remember this because of how silly it is. I drew both Zillow Beasts,
Ah,
2 U-Wing reinforcements, a home one, a redemption, and a Luke by turn 3
mm, that's awful.
against a Sabine.
Yep. You've lost that game.
So yeah, I promptly lost that game. We played a second one. I didn't have a unit out for the first 2 turns, and so you lose that one. And then we played a friendly third game because we had like 30 minutes left, and I'm just like, oh my god, do I just auto lose the Sabine? Is my whole life wrong? And I kind of drew normal cards, and I had like 3 damage on my base by the end of the game. So yeah, starting off 0-2 was bad. A couple 5-2s will make it, but they ain't gonna make it with the breakers I was gonna get. So my next opponent was like a yellow Anakin. I managed to control that well enough to win. The two people after that were running Django Tarkentown, so those were just essentially free wins. So that was nice. Went up to 3-2. Played a green Cad Bane deck, which was wild. Our games were just super swingy back and forth. Eventually, he has like Cad Bane unit that just kind of really messes with that deck because you take like an Echo based defender and a Village Protector and like an Arc,
Hmm.
and you're just like, oh great, cool. Or I think he captured like one of my home ones because it had like 2 health left on it, or my redemption because it had 2 health left on it. So unfortunately, I lost those, and then the last one I played it was a blue Palpatine, uh, which was great. But I don't think I'd ever beat a blue Palpatine deck with this Boba deck, just because his end game is actually better than mine, and he doesn't really care about my ground units, and I'm not going to put enough damage to stop a Palpatine there. But it was kind of cool. It was like a low cost separatist package for like the first, half of the deck, and then the other half was like the higher cards you'd normally expect, like the Avengers and all that kind of stuff, which I liked.
I actually really like Palpatine Blue right now. And
Mhm.
maybe just because it's like reminiscence of me playing Kira, but now I can play my Palp again, right?
Yeah.
So I have a Jabba showcase. If anybody wants to trade a Jabba showcase for a Palp showcase, that'd be super awesome. Though I have thought about playing Jabba again just because I have the showcase. I don't know. See. Jabba's so much fun to play. I really like playing Jabba. But so it sounds like you had a decent, kind of decent run.
Up and
Some
down,
heartbreakers, yeah.
very tired going in,
Yeah. I
incredibly
think that
tired going out.
that affects I do think that affects a little bit decision making wise, right? And like I don't know. I find when I'm tired and I play, I have less patience, and I either make like super impulse decisions that I should probably think through. When I played Loopy at that other tournament for the planetary qualifier, that was kind of how I felt. Like towards the end, it was just like, come on, let's just one of us just has to win. And then I should have been a little bit more competitive in that aspect. But when you get tired and you're hungry and you're ornery, it's a little harder to maintain some of that. And that's why some of these other players do really well, because that's like something that is good for them. You don't eat either. So like how many beers did you have, Alex? That's what I want.
We weren't drinking because it
Oh,
was it was
wow.
9 in the morning, so it was kind of hard to just get alcohol. Uh, um,
Yeah, okay.
we had some
You
breakfast.
just
We had
need
a little bit of
Cody. That's what
yeah,
you need.
I know. I wasn't driving, so it's not like I had the alcohol on me or anything. But yeah, it was. I didn't miss any triggers, and I don't think I made like severe misplays. But I think most of like why I was just not doing well was also like I was not considering what possibilities my opponent could have played, which I normally do. But like when you're that, got that much like brain fog, and you're just like, okay, I'm here. I also didn't have any caffeine at all. Whoopsies. So that was like not exactly ideal. So I really wasn't like considering, oh, he might just drop X here. Maybe I should do this instead. Or, oh, right, they're on 5 resources in yellow and they got a couple units out. They're probably going to play Plo Koon. I should attack one of their units so he doesn't swing for 6 kind of thing.
Mm, mm.
But it was great. It was very fun. We had a fair amount of locals. They did really well. I believe we had 2 locals in the top 8 in each of the 3 tournaments. I know Sanazuski got in there with Django
Yep.
Tarkentown. I believe Cole was the one playing Quinlan Voss Green, or he was playing. I think he was the Quinlan Voss in the first one. Um, and Phil was the one playing the Green Luke deck that we were commenting about in the third tournament. And Kyle also got on the third day of the third tournament with Quinlan Voss Green. And I'm just trying to remember if we had anyone other than Sanazuski in the top 8 for the Big 2K. I don't think so. But we had a really good showing for Michigan. And that's always great when we're going down to Ohio.
Yeah, I'm a little sad. I should have gone, but I don't. I'm just so torn. Sometimes, like, it feels for you at least it was like a little bit closer. Like for me, that would have been another 3 hours on top of that. Like I'd had to get up at midnight. I did leave at midnight to make the game. Make it there to have breakfast and everything.
Yeah,
I could have done the overnight thing. I kind of wish Stanny had reached out to. I probably might have people had asked me ahead of time, but just without having a lot of other people and it just I don't know. Like I don't like going to tournaments that far away alone. It's just not fun. Like I really like people, I guess, when I go to church. And I think that's a big thing for me. Which we should probably talk about Worlds at some point, right? Like or whatever they're gonna call it. I don't know what they're gonna call it. But the Galactic Championships. Is that what they call it? I think
that sounds about right.
But we should probably talk about that because that might be something fun that we could figure out how to do something really cheap. And it is in Vegas, so maybe we can win some of our money back. Maybe.
Yeah, there you go.
Can we go play some craps? I kind of want to go play. I do want to go play craps. Like that sounds like a lot. I just gotta convince the wife how to get there, and then it'll be even better.
So let's jump into these decks.
Yeah,
and then made the top.
So they did play out that 2K. They split pricing, but then I think they played it out just for the sake of playing it out to see who won. And so Tada, John from KTOD, is one of the guys that has been big part of that group. He's the one that won the whole thing essentially, with that Django Tarkin town. So you want to go over the deck?
Yeah.
Or you want Stanny's deck?
Well, I would prefer Stanizewski's deck.
Okay,
but
I'll take this. That's fine. So the Django Tarkin town, we have 3 ISB agents, 3 Greedos, 3 Daring Raids, 1 Force Choke, which I just feel is bad. Like, give me more Force Choke, baby. 3 of the Cartel Spacers, 2 No Good To Me Deads, 3 Crafties, 3 Kylo Silencer, 3 Surprise Strikes, 1 Merchant Gunship, 2 of the is that
breaking in?
It is breaking in. Okay.
Yep.
Breaking in, 3 7 Fleet Defenders, 1 Vambrace, 3 of the Lurking Ties, 3 Triple Dark Raids, 3 of the amazing elite elite rogues. Is that what we get to call them? Like they're cool rogues.
P-38s.
Yeah, I love those. 1 Waylay, 1 Imperial Interceptor, 1 TIE Advance, 3 Ruthless Raiders, 3 Fet's Fire Sprays, and then 1 of those silly little tanks that actually does more damage than you think. The sideboard, 1 Fang Fighter, which I think is crazy. That's like very low, it feels, but you do get the 3 Sabines. You can still strip the hand. 1 Vambrace extra, 1 more of the Imperials, 2 more TIE Advanced, and 2 spicy Cad Banes because if you're need them to capture units, I guess. I don't.
Yeah, I mean they clear the way.
I guess like that's the only good part because technically you could capture them with Cad Bane and just never swing, right?
Right.
and then you get their units forever and ever and ever. This is similar-ish to what we saw with Boba Red. This is a lot more reminiscent of the that Tarkin space deck, the green yellow, which was super popular. And it is a good deck. The question becomes, is this something that can stand up? So I think Django's ability with this deck. So you have your ISB agents, you have your Daring Raids. I don't know, Force Choke, you probably are just killing whatever. Like that's what you're killing.
Well, the Daring Raid isn't from a unit, so it doesn't trigger Django.
No. But if you when you play it with the ISB agent, sorry,
yeah,
that's what I meant with it.
Yeah, you have a fair amount of events that you can flash with ISB agent.
Yeah. And then you have, like you do have the Flamethrower Brace. If you can get that off, it's a little harder when you don't have any ground units and you're only working with Django. You obviously have the Elite Starfighters, and then the Imperial Interceptors. Both those do ping damage. Though again, I found that Imperial Interceptor usually kills their space units pretty quickly.
Yeah,
so.
I feel like that's more for like a mirror kind of thing than it is
anything else. Yeah. And then obviously the Ruthless Raiders, and then that tank. So a nifty little deck. Again, obviously Django and that elite that stupid rogue was built for Django. Like I don't care what it that card was specifically built for Django. Like somebody said, oh, let me give Django a unit that he can use with this ability. So neat little deck.
Yeah,
All right.
Staniszewski's deck is very similar. Uh, he did iterate, I believe, on it. It's more of a more toolboxy kind of thing. So his is the triple ISP agents, the triple Greedos. Those are the same. But he has 2 TIE fighters and 1 swoop down in the deck, just for more space, more. Hey, they're 1 drop, so the math works out. When you're dropping more units, you can swarm the board a little bit more. The swoop down can come in clutch. He has triple daring raid, still the 1 force stroke, which hurts me.
Yeah, like why, baby?
Personally, but like I get it. Triple cartel spacer, double no good to me dead, double crafty smuggler, triple Kylo silencer, triple surprise strike, double breaking in, triple 7 fleet defender. Also on 1 Vambrace, which I know he did attach to Django and was just mowing people down. He had a triple lurking tie, the triple dark raid, triple the P-38s, 1 interceptor, triple raider, triple Fets fire spray, 1 heavy pursuiter tank, and 1 Cad Bane main deck. In the side, he has double wolf. That way, they can't heal that turn, right? You know, it's really sad if they drop a wolf and you're just like, cool, my redemption does nothing. Glad I have it. I got double Bazine, another Vambrace flamethrower, another interceptor, 2 tie advanced, 1 change of heart, and a 2nd Cad Bane. My buddy Jake, he main decks the Tri-Fighters, the Droid Tri-Fighters, which are in either of these decks, and he absolutely loves it. There's a little bit of a debate, just be like, hey, do you run the Droid Tri-Fighters? Do you run Wolf? Wolf lasts for the entire turn when you play him. Droid Tri-Fighters last until they die. So you can kind of see why Staniszewski would have Wolf over the Tri-Fighters. My buddy Jake just absolutely loves the Tri-Fighters, though.
I actually don't dislike the Tri-Fighters in this type of a deck, right? Like I think they do, like you're not healing anyway, so like you don't care about space. And like if you have 2 big space, like if you have that Tri-Fighter and a Lurking TIE Phantom, you kind of have to kill that Lurking TIE Phantom, right? Because otherwise that thing's just going to murder you and you can't be killed by anything but a space unit for the most part, right?
Right.
And make opening, whatever.
Or, perilous position, I guess.
Or perilous position, yeah, that could be used now too, so.
I was speaking with Ryan, and he's just like, hey, people came up to me. He's like, he beat like 2 or 3 Djangos on his way up into the tournaments, right? So he's winning the mirror matches, and they're just like, Ryan, you keep winning these mirror matches. What are you doing? And he's like, well, I sided a whole bunch of cards in that I never saw, so I don't know. Just draw better than your opponent. So I mean, it's very effective. Ryan is an incredibly good player. So it's nice to see a Michigan guy go to the top. Although it's really, really sad that I didn't get to play him because that Boba Fett just absolutely rocks that deck.
He's probably happy. So he's probably
he was very happy.
He probably was like, thank God I don't see Alex today. All right, let's move on to the new iteration of Han Yellow. This one was the guy that was running the stream, basically, the McClunky Gaming that streamed it. If you want, I did throw the link to their channel in the document for it, and I did it because I was actually rather impressed with some of their stream. I know it had some issues at the beginning of the day, but it was pretty nice to be able to see this again, and there were some decent matchups on there. So, kudos to them for however they determined to pick it. But they had 3 Hotshot Blasters, 3 Sparks, 3 L337s, 3 Surprise Strikes, 3 of, what do we call them? New R2D2, Flying R2D2. Yeah. Well, only 1 Ezra, which I just find crazy. Like, I love me some Ezra. 3 Falcons, 3 Bodies, 3 of the liberated people, 3 DJ, 3 Tech, 3 Waylay, 2 Ozatucks, 3 Cunning, 2 Kiras, which that's one of the additions I like. We'll talk about that in a minute. 2 of the Cartel
The Cantina
Bouncers, only 2 Plo Koon, 2 of, we'll call it Falcon number 2, and 3 Han. The sideboard was Bamboozled, which I think is a great sideboard card if you're not going to run that main deck. 3 C3POs, obviously to partner with R2. 2 of the Spare the Field, which I really want to know if he ever sided that. I just want to know if he ever sided that card in, because if nobody's running token decks, that card is like not working. But in token decks, it's great. Then
it literally clears the field like its name. Like it just
it works so well. Yep. I had that played against me in a pre-release, and I was like, well, all right, there goes my Grievous game. Good game, buddy.
But it is actually not too bad of attack, I guess, a little bit of against Django, right? Because most of the space units cost 3 or less.
Yeah.
So if they happen to have like multiple not mercenary gunship defenders,
yeah,
phantoms, you can bounce the phantoms, all of the phantoms back to their hands. You probably don't want to do the P-38s, but you can.
Well, if they have no resources at the time, then go ahead and bounce them, and then you don't care. He also had 2 Gamorrean guards and 1 more Cantina bouncer. I think the Ezras, I think not having extra Ezras is just crazy to me. Like I especially in a Han deck, right? Like Ezra works so well when you can use Han's ability to get a resource and then play your Ezra, like or use Ezra to play something out of your, the top of your deck. Like, and if you know what it is, because the C3PO, it's even better. But that's not happening in this deck. But anyway, like, so obviously this is the same skin we saw for set 2 with a few added things. The Plo Koon is new. The Kira, I like the Kira ad personally as well. Especially going into a weekend where a lot of people were running the Django, and you would be playing against a lot of Sabines, right? So like you can kind of be a little like it's like another cheap peak card, and it's only a 4 resource drop, right? And yeah, she doesn't do a lot outside of that, like, and she can die pretty easily to take down some of these other things. But you're getting like an advantage of seeing somebody's hand and then naming a card to be a dick about it, right?
Yeah,
so
make triple dark raid cost 6.
Yeah, pretty good. Like I think that's really good, like really smart, and I wanted Kira to be good last set, and I don't think it made cut with some of the stuff, but now it makes a lot more sense, especially with these multiple cards we're getting for 2D.
Initially, there was Kiras, like 2 off Kiras in the mono yellow Hans, and I think they got moved to the sideboard as the time went on. But yeah, now main decking it is pretty nice. The 3/5 vanilla liberated guys is an interesting choice. You don't typically see that, but just having a 3/5 body means they'll stay around longer. And they're more sturdy, so you're more likely to get like Plo Koon off with Coordinate, or just have like a decent board kind of thing. With Hot Shot Blasters, they're kind of scary.
Yeah, you have Hot Shot Blasters and Surprise Strike that all work with them, and they're like super awesome. So
yeah, but yeah, so, I mean, it's a solid mono yellow Han. You get even more reach with your 2D2s now. And you still have like the hand hate with Sparkler Rebellion and Kira's, and a little bit of the Cunning and Bodies,
Yeah.
So
I like this deck a lot, actually. Like I kind of been thinking about switching back to playing Yellow Han just because I like Han, and it's my first showcase I ever pulled. Do we have to go over this deck? I think this deck is identical, except for it has a 1 Death Trooper in it.
It does have a Stormtrooper, and it has a second copy of the Heavy Pursuer tank, but no, it's just basically roughly the same shell of the red Django that you've been seeing.
We're going to move on. We're not.
Yep.
Anakin, there you go, Alex, baby. Let's go through this deck. I want to see this one.
So one of my locals is now completely jumped onto this. He's probably going to modify a little bit. But yeah, it's a blue Anakin. I think this is what people were mostly going for until now there are two of them was spoiled, and then everyone just jumped on the yellow Anakin train instead. But this one makes a lot of sense. Uh, so this is triple force choke, double daring raid, triple restored arc, triple A wing, triple Sabine, triple Queel, triple Yoda, triple Jedi lightsaber, double red 3, triple village protectors, double Cassian, triple perilous position, double Kanan, one copy of the Force is with me, double takedown, double Razor Crest, double Poe, double Bravado, double Obi-Wan, a Rival's Fall, and triple Luke. In the side, you have triple Concord Dawn Interceptors, double Pillage, double Obi-Wan's Aether Sprite, a second copy of Rival's Fall, and double Crate Dragon. And I like this deck. I mean, the restore kind of minimizes the downside with Anakin, but mostly just the blue units tend to have low attack but high health. So when you can have someone that gives them extra attack so they can trade, he just starts out tempoing your opponent. Like Yoda is a 2/4 restore 2, but with Anakin, he's a 4/4
Mm.
for 3, which is nice. And then when he dies, you draw a card. And also, you could play Force Throw.
And Jedi lightsaber.
And Jedi Lightsaber. And the Force is with me. Yeah. I think some of these are kind of weird choices. Like, I would probably main deck the Concord Dawn Interceptors. And
and
probably the Aether Sprite.
And 3 Cassians? Like, why are we going down 2?
I don't mind the 2 Cassians much. I think the Razor Crest is kind of weird. I get that it's restore and you can get back things like your Jedi lightsabers and your perilous positions, which is nice. But it just seems kind of weird. I think I'd just rather have Obi-Wan's Aether Sprites.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And there's no K2SO in this deck either. You don't
Right.
see that? That's even crazier because that's got Overwhelm. It's like with Anakin, it's like a 6/4. And then does 3 damage or strips your opponent's hand.
Yeah, so I mean, you still have to balance the red cards with Queel, but I don't think this one actually bothered too much to do that. So there's still, I mean, I didn't make top 8 at the event, and I think they did like for 3 days in a row. So, maybe they're onto something here, but this is a good deck. Um, I I built a lot of Anakin decks early on with Bravado, so I guess I'm glad that I'm kind of validated, but a little bit upset that people remember that card exists. That's just really silly with Anakin.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but yeah, no, I think it's just solid. It's a red blue force deck, and those are generally really good. But also, Anakin is very good at trading up. I wonder how many Jangos they ended up playing and how interesting of a match that could have been. Because they do have like triple arc, triple A wing, double red 3, so they have space presence.
Yeah, they got Razor Crest in there. They also have like their sideboard has 2 more space units, which they're probably there honestly for the Jank.
Yeah,
Is
you
probably
got
what it's there
in
for.
there too. So like you just got the Sentinels, the Crate Dragons, I'm sure, is for when the games go long. But also, can you imagine like Anakin abilitying a Crate Dragon up to 12 to really overwhelm?
Yeah, that's just
Yeah, it's a solid deck. Definitely. I enjoy it.
all right. Let's move. We'll move on to the Sabine. This is the Dark
Nothing
Saber
changed.
version.
Literally nothing changed. There's no new set 3 cards in there.
No,
Not
they
main deck.
dropped 1 Cassian down, it looks like. So they went down to 2 Cassians.
They go Dodonna.
They put Dodonna back in, which was, I believe, a KTOD thing that was discussed beforehand. Was adding the Dodonnas back in there if they're going to run Rebel suites.
They have
and then
2 set 3 cards.
Yep, and that's it, which is crazy because I think there's a lot more with Sabine you can do. But they added Brain Invaders
In the sideboard. 2 copies of Brain Invaders.
Of all things, and they played this. If you go back and watch the stream, that got played on stream, and then I think it ruined. I think he lost because he played that card.
That's tragic.
because it helps with the Django, right? But it doesn't help you when you can't play a dark saber and you can't do all these other things with your leader either. Like it just you
Yeah, you
can't
don't get
use her.
the countdown ping timer that she gets with that.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
So,
yeah, I don't know.
um,
But yeah, that is kind of weird that they didn't continue to iterate on this. Like you have Jyn Erso, right? Like she's a
mm-hmm.
rebel in red.
You
Maybe
have
you
new art,
need the space units, but like you can just replace two X-wings with Jyn Erso, right?
yeah.
Like
And I still don't like going down to two Cassian. I don't. Cassian in this deck is just so good, like just so good. And I think that it's that Rebel Assault. They want that immediate buff from Rebel Assault in the medal ceremonies, right? But I um
yeah,
I
I mean,
feel like they just took a deck and this is what has been super popular. Let's add some Dodanas in and some brain
and brain invasion
invaders.
because I can.
Yeah. Like not any other cards you want to put in
Hey,
there,
you
buddy?
might go against a Hera. You never know. You just shut her ability off entirely.
If you go against Sahara and play
Or
that
like a
card,
Nala.
that's just mean. That's just a mean thing.
Just Hera Nala decks out there, just shut off their abilities immediately.
So, all right, let's move on. What has Ray got for us? It's a little bit different. There's some other stuff in there I haven't seen. Alex, what is this?
Yeah, it's a little bit different. It's actually pretty close to something that a couple of my logos have been brewing up. But yeah, it's Red Ray Tarkentown. You got triple Force Throw, double R2D2, double Restored Arc, triple A Wing, triple Sabine, triple Yoda, double Jedi Lightsaber, triple Concord Dawn Interceptors, double Village Protectors, triple Perilous Position, double Open Fire, triple Kanan, double Takedown. I was going to say Darken Down, double Takedown.
Two
Uh,
bases.
yeah. Double the Nema Outpost Constables, which I see occasionally in Raid decks, just bring them up to a 3/7 Sentinel. Uh, Triple System Patrol Craft, almost probably specifically because of this tournament.
Mhm.
Double Pillage, one of the Senatorial Corvettes. That's the new space unit from this set, the 5/4 Saboteur. When defeated, dump a card out of your opponent's hand. Uh, Double Obi-Wan, one Rivals Fall, triple Luke, one Mace, double Crate Dragon. In the side, you have a third Village Protector, double K2SO, a third Nema Outpost, one Fell the Dragon, which is the one that they run in the deck, one Vanquish, double Force Surrender, and double Redemption. It is kind of like they took the two or three-ish different varieties of Raydax and then just squashed them into one.
This is a JJ deck. That's what this is.
So it's just like, hey, I want to keep the open fires, but I'm going to drop it down, and I'm going to take the pillages, but I'm also going to drop that down. But also I need more space because Django is going to be a thing right now. But it's like, but also I want more Sentinel, but I'm going to dump, like, I'm not going to play the Chewbacca's. It's kind of all over the place, but it's very solid. I mean, it's just like a tough deck for people to get through. I've always liked the Red Ray decks a lot. Um, yeah, I mean, it just does work. And Ray just turn one R2D2, turn him into a 2/5 is very strong.
Yeah.
And the one attack on the A Wings and the Concord Dawn Interceptors are fantastic for Ray.
She loves as village people, and Ray is like, oh hey, it's not with 3/3, and can be very dirty.
I do actually just really like the Senatorial Corvettes. Just in general, I think they're a pretty strong ship. I feel like if it wasn't specifically this tournament, they might have ran a little bit more instead of the System Patrol Craft.
I think it's
But
better. And this deck gets really good because it gives you that discard, but like with it, it's like extra discard.
yeah, because you get that with the pillages. I mean, the K2s are on the side, but you have that and you got the force throw. You don't have pose in this one. So it's a little bit less focused on hand control. But it can still control really well between the triple perilous position, double open fire, double takedown, rivals fall.
Mm. It does feel like a JJ deck. I actually agree with you on that Senatorial Corvette. I feel like that's at least a 2 of. Like, I think that, like, I feel that I mean, I get that you have to have the Sentinel in the space, but, like, I don't know, the Nemia Outpost, they're whatever. Like, and maybe it's because I play control decks, and that's what, like, I just laugh at you when you play that card and, like, murder it, so I don't feel as bad about it, but, I mean, I guess a 3/7 is still a pain in the butt to get.
3/7 Sentinel is just kind of a. It's not threatening, but it's just like, great, I have to deal with this now, and I have to run 2 to 3 units into it just to continue attack. And slowing them down with the village protectors and the Nemo outposts is very good in Ray.
All right, let's move on to the Kira deck. Kira Green. If you guys want, I released last week a Kira ECL version, an updated version with mine. I may openly admit that I did not think about that gunship. So that HMP gunship, I was not as high on, but I feel it's a little bit better than I thought it was with the fact that you get the wind plate ability now. And with Kira, it works better than I thought it would work. You don't get an overwhelming
5/3 shielded.
Yeah, and you're just I don't know. It works better than I thought, so I think I have to go back to my Kira deck, and actually tweak it for that. Which it sucks because I have to now go tear it apart again. Blah blah blah. But this deck is not a Chilson deck, which makes a little bit more sense, but it doesn't at the same time. It's a little bit more green. So you don't have the Chilsons in here like you would. And I think that's kind of one of the discussion points that we've all been having a little bit is Chilson better than some of these other things? And I think that's going to be a big question. Like, do we want Chilsons as Sentinels, or can we finally move on from trying to run a Chilson and kind of go this route? But they have 2 Infernal 4s, 2 Dr. Pershings, 3 Pike Sentinels, 2 of the, what is that, Rune, whatever
Rune
he says,
Hako.
Rune Hako Tana or whatever. 3 Power of the Dark Sides, 3 of the Super Laser Techs, 3 Calculating Magna Guards, 2 of the Perilous Pursuits, 3 Resupplies, 3 Vigilance, 2 Takedown, 1 Lom Pike, which I think is just a crime. 2 of the Patrol Crafts, 1 Fell the Dragon, 3 Overwhelming Barrages, 3 of the HMP Gunships, 1 Vanquish, 2 Vaders, 2 Mauls, 1 Reinforcement Walker, 2 Snokes, 3 Avengers, and the Lonely Devastator. The sideboard, you got your top targets. They added in, I would love to know if they ever used the Traitoresses. They added 2 Traitoresses in, which I think is spicy because that we have not been running that in Kira. But with some of these lower drop units, they actually might be better this time around than it was before. Then you also have 1 Pulse Return, 2 Super Laser Blasts, and 2 Relentless units, which I was main decking, and I still feel that those are a good main deck of Devastators. But we'll see. So interesting enough, this is obviously not the ECL deck, so this is definitely a grindy. This is closer to like what I would feel your Boba deck is like. This is a very grindy deck. The 3 Vigilance main deck is hilarious because we talked about that like a lot at the last PQ I went to. Is like people didn't like, why are you running Vigilance main deck? And I was like, I've been running 2 Vigilance main deck in my Kira for a long time because it's just such a good card against Sabines. Like I can heal 5 and kill something in 1 turn to stall them out, which is really good, especially if you drop the Wrecker and Overwhelmed and has damage on it. Like, super nice to kill that stupid somebody. I don't know. It's a different one. I will say the big thing I think is really good is that gunship that I definitely missed out on. It's also noticeable. Look, they went down to 2 Vader. Like, did you ever think there would be a world where you only ran 2 Vaders? I don't know. I know why they're doing it. I like the Reinforcement Walker, and this deck is again more event focused and grindy. You don't have as many low drops. You don't need Vader. I don't know. I hate only one Lawn Pike. I love that card so much.
Yeah, Lawn Pike's great for sure.
So
Yeah, I mean, it seems solid. I mean, it's a Kira deck. I think you got a lot of a lot of help with that with like the calculated mana guards.
yep.
Yep, I think those are
Now
huge. So
there's no Grievous in this deck either, though, which I think is just
right.
crazy. Like, why are you not running Grievous? Like, Grievous is great. Like, I don't get that. I would cut a resupply and a vigilance for 2 Grievuses at minimal, right? Like, just let me have my Grievuses. They're so good. What about that Perilous Pursuit? Do you really think that's? I don't know. Do you think that's?
So I
I
was
don't know.
having this debate with actually a lot of my locals, like 5 or 6 of them, and we're just like, do I do make an opening or do I do perilous position? If I am outright killing a unit, I would much rather have make an opening, right? Because it does the same thing, but now I heal too. If I am not outright killing the unit, I think perilous position is better, especially if you can hit leaders, because you can hit leaders with them, right? You
Mhm.
flip Yellow Han over, you throw a perilous position on him, and he's just the most unhappy thing in the world. He no longer gets to swing in, so you could drop his 7 drop, right? And but the counterpoint is like, well, if there's upgrade removal, which occasionally there is, you got the pose. Some people were main decking the confiscates. I think they kind of moved away from that. Now that's a different meta, and you don't have Boba's armor, and like perilous position isn't as good as make an opening. I ultimately decided to go with the perilous positions, honestly, mostly just so I can just stop leaders dead in their track. Because I have done like, oh hey, their Anakin is coming out. I'm gonna give them a perilous position and then run a modded cohort into them, and they die immediately.
All right, and that's fair. And that's I just didn't know. I guess it just felt like a high tax for 3. You do get to exhaust them. I guess
Yeah,
I don't know. I guess you get the exhaust out of it, right? That's pretty good, especially I don't
that's the reason to run it over make an opening is because it exhausts. And again, it's kind of like if you're outright killing the unit, which is how I believe you and I have been playing a lot of making openings.
yeah.
That's how we did it. It was just like, well, there's gone now. I don't have to worry about this TIE Defender or the lurking TIE Phantom or whatever, right?
Mm.
With Perilous Position, it's more like you attach it, you exhaust it. If they only have 2 attack, like I did it to an X-Wing, like, well, if they only have 2 attack, they ain't doing anything. I don't really care too much that they're just kind of sticking around. So it is technically permanent like that. So like if I have no intention of killing the unit, make them functionally useless. But yeah, it's just that exhaust. Like in my Green Cad Bane matchup, he overwhelming barrage his Cad Bane unit, and then cleared my board, and then I just perilous positioned him. So I'm like, well, at least I don't take 9 damage off of this. So yeah, the exhaust is useful. Yeah, you just have to like we just have to change the mindset of like we're not using it to outright kill, we're using it to delay. And then I guess if you want to go into the unit, you can still do it like I do with leaders.
True. And I think that's a fair point. So I do like the leader. I never really thought about that. I mean, like even like on a Sabine against a Sabine, like you play this and like it just stops her. Like then she plays the dark saber and you just don't care as much as you used to.
Yeah,
And
she hits for 5 in the base with a dark saber, which isn't great, but also she has 6 health, which is kind of manageable.
yes, that makes it a little bit easier to kill her. Whereas before you're like, oh my god, how am I going to get rid of this thing?
I have like perilous position to Cad Bane and then take him down
Yeah.
because now he's at 5 health.
So I do like it. I do think it's an interesting thing, and I think we'll have to see like if we don't get upgrade hate, maybe that's something that we can deal with. We're gonna save Pelt for last. I want to go through just this Yoda deck real quick. If you want to touch on this, um, I don't even know how quick we can go. I don't know. Let's go through the Yoda deck. I'm gonna let you take the Yoda deck.
Yeah, I can speed through it. I have relative experience doing
Okay.
something similar to this. So we got Yellow Yoda. It's got triple Grogu, triple the Padawan Starfighter. They're the little Aether sprites. Triple the yellow R2D2, triple Yoda, double Jedi lightsaber, triple Ezra, triple You're My Only Hope. You got to staple that in the Yoda deck. Triple Concord Dawn Interceptor, one Hello There, double Ahsoka, triple. Now there are two of them, which is kind of a crux of this deck. You got triple Kanan, double The Force is with Me, one Azatuk, triple Obi-Wan's Aether Sprites, triple Kiadi-Mundi, triple Plo Koon, triple Obi-Wan, and triple Luke. In the side, you got double Top Target, double Spark Rebellion, double Make an Opening, didn't care about the Perilous Position, one copy of a Waylay, double Takedown, and a second Azatuk. Um, a lot of this is just like, hey, I have a ton of Force units. Now there are two of them. Lets me play it for cheaper. I've got You're My Only Hope that lets me play things for cheaper. Um, I have a local of mine who runs a very similar deck, but it's Obi-Wan. So it's like Obi Yellow. He even has like the Padawan Starfighters and all that. Dropping a turn 2 Kiadi-Mundi is really funny. You don't get the coordinate off immediately, but he's still a 5/7 that your opponent has to deal with. I played something like Yellow Anakin. I've dropped a Plo Koon on turn 2. That's pretty good. But yeah, just force energies. You don't have a lot of control, but you have just really hard hitting units.
Is this like more of a tempo-ish mid-range type deck? Is that what this is going for?
Yeah, it's very tempo. It's just like you got the Grogus to exhaust them, and then you just kind of overwhelm them with the Jedi lightsabers and your high attack. You got You're My Only Hope, so you can play things for cheaper. Play Luke for
Yeah.
5 resources. If you set it up, all you have to do is something leaves play. If you have those two cards. So it's mostly just trying to cheat out some strong units and then just win off of that. But also you have a fair amount of restore and a little bit of control. Like it's solid. Again, Obi-Wan yellow, roughly the same thing. Yoda yellow, still strong. I think that's the color most people gravitated to was
Yellow.
mono blue Yoda and yellow Yoda. My first instinct was mono blue Yoda, and I kind of like it better. Again, vigilance for 4 is silly,
It
or
does.
2 if you have Bendu. But I mean, I think it's still solid. I'm still iffy on Ahsoka, but again, she's a force unit that you can do things with.
Yeah. All right. So we have 3 iterations of this pulp deck. I do have the link to his video just so everybody knows. Like I'm gonna I'll be open. Like I couldn't get a hold of him, but I did. He did have post a video, so the link is in the description. So he talks about this in more detail than we're gonna go into. We are not gonna go into a million pounds of detail. I will say my first, like, I am very confused why I have a scanning officer as my official officer and I have no other officers in this deck at all. Like not even the sideboard. And then he has 3 iterations of it, obviously going through each of the different days. As you can see, he went 9th, which is I will say that especially against like a Django type thing, like where we see this like aggressive aggro and the space aggro, like that's pretty good, right? 9th is still pretty good for Pelp. The first day was 3rd place. That's really good for Pelp. And then the last day he made 2nd place with it. So, Alex, do we just go through version 3 and kind of say that's the smarter one, or do we want to go through each iteration? How do you want to do that?
I definitely don't want to do each iteration. Okay. But like, yeah, either the first one, because that's like his initial instinct, that's what he built the deck on. Or I guess maybe the third one, if maybe he iterated to try to adapt to the SCG Con meta. But I think the first one might just be the most logical, right? Because like that's the deck that he would bring to a tournament.
Okay.
So yeah, he has triple No Good to Me Dead, double Sneak Attack, triple Scanning Officer, triple Bazine, double Cloud Rider, triple Mercenary Gunship, triple the Emperor's Royal Guards, triple Super Laser Tech, triple Resupply, triple P-38, triple Waylay, triple Overwhelming Barrage, triple Syndicate Lackeys, double Change of Heart, triple Vader, double Maul, double Cad Bane, double Reinforcement Walker, and double Devastator. In the side, he has 2 copies of Unmasking the Conspiracy.
which is
Uh,
hilarious.
well, I mean, I guess you kind of have draw advantage with Palpatine, right? So he's almost can get rid of it. One merciless contest, very good if you have no board or
Mhm.
like a super laser tag, right? Triple Palpatine's return, one evacuate, double relentless, and a third devastator. So this is very much okay. One, yeah, I agree with you. The scanning officer is wild to only have that in Palpatine unit to be like your only officials, right?
Yeah, like, crazy to me. That's I mean, he did
But
well without it,
yeah, I mean,
but
he did significantly better than I did. So yeah, it's just a lot of exhaust, a lot of control. You got Bazine to rip out their problem cards. You do have ramp. You can do first turn ramp with the sneak attacks, super laser tech combo, which is hilarious.
Mhm.
You got the resupplies. I mean, you just try to get to the late game. You got change of heart for any big bombs they have. Triple waylay. I mean, the Cad Bane unit, the Maul unit, and the Vader unit, and you're running Devastator, which is great. Just if there's not a lot of aggro, you can kind of get away with these things. I think it's actually not too bad against Django, just between the no good to me dads, the Bazines to rip out the triple dark raids. You have overwhelming barrage. You got the waylays. So I can see why it did really well. Um, Further on, he kind of iterated. He added, Fell the Dragon in the sideboard, which, occasionally we saw out of aspects that caused Fell the Dragons. Um,
A
he,
Bosk. He
yeah,
added
yeah,
a
he,
boss
he
that
had a
was
little bit of ambush. He had the Kintan Intimidators to, I guess, probably hedge against aggro because you just run them in there and exhaust their good stuff. Uh, yeah, later on he added Traitorouses, a little bit of Yularans, kind of all over the place, but he's just iterating, depending on what he saw. And they're solid. Again, like his video will explain it all, but it's
yes.
just like we were talking last side about maybe yellow pulp, just exhaust and get to the end game.
Yep. And if you go but like his all of his lists have very this is like our red version but in yellow, right? Like it's
Right.
how do I stop you? Except for I don't like the lack of sentinel really does bother me a little bit. Um especially I don't know. It is what it is, but it's the same thing as kind of like our red pub. This is not like I want to control you just till I can hit that resource churn to be able to drop some big stuff and then blow you out. And that's what this is. Like that change of heart, like that's so good in this deck, right? Like it just you play the fire spray, guess what's mine now? It's my fire spray. I could play change of heart for 6 resources. I probably already ramped, and guess who's gonna pop up fire spray? This guy. Like just
Yeah.
like that's and this like that change of heart. I wish I had a red smuggle cost so I could play it help red.
But yeah, no, I'm always down for more Palpatines. It's nice that you get like the P-38s. They trigger
Hmm.
they help trigger his ability just by pinging for damage out there, and I think Sneak Attack's just a really cool card. I know he just caught it
Hmm.
from the rest of the iterations, but it's always fun just to like, hey, I'm gonna sneak attack my uh like reinforcement walker or something, right? And then now I heal 6 while doing 6. Or sneak attack and a devastator is hilarious. Drop it, deal 8 to 10 damage, swing in for 10, and then leave.
Yep, and it's just gone. Very crisp. I don't know. I like the deck. I do think it's nice to see Pulp come back, and I think as we kind of wrap up, right? Like that's kind of what I wanted to like just say is like he openly admits in his video that Pulp is still bad. He still struggles into like aggro and extreme aggro. But if we see Django crop up, Django helps with some of that. Django has good value into some of the Sabines, right? Um, so the question
Bingo
is
should pretty much always beat Sabines.
yeah. So the question now kind of becomes is like if Pelp is really the only bad matchup like for Pelp like a Sabine. If that's like okay, that's not the only one. I would say if Lando's become popular for some reason again, like Lando into that's not fun. Like I hate playing Lando into Pelp. But like,
A lot of extreme go wide decks.
can we have control decks though? The like pelt decks that are not just green blue. You know, like can we actually have a control deck for once? That's going to be a little that has other flavors, and I think Palpatine's the one to do it, and I think Palpatine is underrated in this set. Like this meta, I think there should be more Palpatines out there, and I think like we released a Palpatine Red video with our first take, but we've never gone to a tournament with it. Though I wish you had gone. I should have taken Pelt. You should have just done it. You should have just done it. Damn it. That would have been hilarious.
I like that Boba deck a lot, man, and it goes well into the field.
It does. And you didn't know how many Sabines would be there, right? So like, it's not super fun to play into Sabine.
Yeah.
So. But do you think, as we wrap up, do you think that where you have like a chance to see something that's no longer like, can we have a little bit more balanced meta with Boba gone, that we see a little bit more smatterings of control and mid-range and not everything just like aggro and mid-range? Like we could get some of this control stuff back.
Yeah, absolutely. It's interesting. There was a little bit less like outright aggro than I expected. I guess like the Django Tarkin downs are pretty aggro, but I expected a little bit more, a little bit people to fall on their old habits. But I guess it is technically like 2.5 weeks into this set, so people are just trying a lot of new stuff. So that's always really cool. I enjoyed it a lot. Would do it again. Probably with sleep this time.
Well, all right. Well, thank you all so much for joining us. I guess I'm sorry we don't have like a bigger aspect into the meta, but like I think like you kind of can see where the meta is going with this, right? Like to some extent what to kind of expect, and I think now like Wu does this thing where he has a testing gauntlet, and like this testing gauntlet that comes out has these newer decks in it, or I'm assuming he's going to add these to his testing gauntlet. And I think that's a thing, is like you have to be prepared for some of these other decks, but now we get to experiment and say, okay, if it's not going to be all Sabine all the time, can I play something a little bit more fun than Sabine, right? Like I thought about buying a Sabine showcase and playing Sabine now, just because it might not be the popular thing anymore, and I could be the unpopular guy playing Sabine still, but just kidding.
Such a hipster.
Yeah. Or do I just go back and play Pelp all the time? Because I have an addiction. So, but anyway, thank you all for joining us. We apologize for the 2-day delay in the podcast. There was just too much going on this weekend. It was I needed a little bit of a breather with everything going on, and I wanted to make sure we gave you quality content as much as we can, at least. So, thank you all. We'll be back next week, Sunday night, 9 p.m. Eastern, and we will see you on the Flippity Flop.
Yeah, thanks for listening, everyone.